Hi, this is Ben from Data Remixed. I want to walk you through how to make a control chart using Tableau Public in this video. And this is basically going to show you how to create a dashboard somewhat like this, which is Tom Brady's career statistics game by game. And it'll allow you to change what it is that you chart in your dashboard. And it shows signals, it shows the statistic itself, as well as the absolute value of the difference between sequential statistics. So from one game to the next, how much did it change? That's down here in what we call the moving range chart. All right, so the data looks something like this. It has all of his games from 1 all the way to 167. And he's got all of his statistics across the different columns. Okay, so that's what your data should look like. You can download this Excel spreadsheet right there from the blog post as well. All right, so let's open up a new book in Tableau Public, and we're going to connect to a data source, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to connect to Tom Brady Career Games.xls. We're going to open it up, and the first thing we're going to want to do is create a parameter. So the parameter is what's going to allow the user to select the different statistics in the dashboard. So let's create, just right-click anywhere on the left-hand side there, create parameter, and we're going to call it statistic, and it's a string with a list in it, and I'm just going to copy and paste it right out of here. These are the different statistics that we have in the data set, so we'll just go ahead and paste that in there. Okay, so now what we've got here is a parameter called statistic that we can show, and again, this allows the user to pick a different one. Now we want to link a calculated field to that parameter. So we're going to create a new calculated field, and it's basically just a series of if-then statements saying if the parameter statistic is a certain value, then connect it to that that field or that measure in Tableau. So we can do that, say OK, and let's call this chosen stat to indicate that this is what the user has chosen in the parameter control. Okay, so there it is. Now what we can do is create a quick little line chart. So we'll put the game in there, and then we'll also show chosen stat right there. And then what we want to do, so here's our line chart. Again, so no statistical parameters or anything like that. What we're going to do next is hold the control key down, drag and move this over. And we're going to call this a dual axis. Synchronize the axis, okay? And we want to make this multiple mark types. So the first one will be a line, which is great. Actually, let's go ahead and take all the colors out. The first one will be a line, and the second one I want to be a shape, and I chose the circles here, so it actually indicates the data point itself. I'll make it a little bigger than that. Okay, cool. So there it is. There's our line chart. Now, what I want to do is create another one over here, hold down the control and drag and drop it across again. Now this one is going to be a table calc of the difference between each sequential row. So there it is, but I want to show the absolute value of the difference for the moving range chart. So I'll go back in here, edit the table calculation, and I'm going to add the absolute value to this table calc, just to modify it, and I'm going to call this moving range. Okay, so that just tells me how every data point changes from game to game, and I'll apply that. There it is, so they're all greater than 0, perfect, and we'll do the same thing here with the moving range to make it actually show dual axis type, and we will synchronize the axes, and I'm going to go back to all, drag the colors out. There's my chosen stats, moving range. The second one I want to be same thing. I want it to be a shape, and we'll make them circles, and make them a little smaller than that. Okay, cool. So now that's kind of the guts of it all, right? So the different elements of the control chart are, you would add a reference line, and this would be the average. So we'll apply that, and you can format it to look like what you want later, but for now we'll just put it in there. So we'll add both average lines. Good, got it. Now what we want to show is the different control limits. So that's where we're going to have to create some more calculated fields. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a calculated field. let's call this MR, moving range, upper control limit. Okay, so what this is this tells us if the difference from one game to the next is significantly different or significantly more than normal. So here it is, it's the moving range formula, and I'll refer you back to that Understanding Variation book by Wheeler if you want some rationale behind this formula. But for now, just in the sake of time, we'll cut and paste it right into here, and all these formulas are in the blog post as well. Okay, so now what you need to do is drag that new calculated field, moving range upper control limit, into the level of detail. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that one in a minute. But before we put these lines in the chart, let's create the other ones too. So we got a couple more calculated fields. Let's call this one's for the upper chart. We're going to call this the upper control limit. Again, just for the individuals, or some call it the X portion of the XMR chart. And here's this control limit. It's basically the average plus 3 times the average of the moving range divided by a correction factor 1.128. Let's cut and paste that right in there. So now we should have UCL, good. And then we'll also create the lower control limit. Call it LCL. All right, come back over here. And it's the same thing as the upper control limit, just instead of a plus, there's a minus. Copy and paste that also right into this formula field. Paste it, okay. And then we got to make sure we drop it into the level of detail for all of the marks. Okay, now we should be able to go in and add a new reference line, and we're going to have this one be the upper control limit. And for now, we're not going to format it, but there it is. Same thing, let's go in and add now the lower control limit. And then down here in the moving range chart, we'll add the moving range upper control. Okay, cool. So you can see right away that if we look at his yards per game, there's some data points that fall outside of the control limits. Well, that's really nice, but I like to be able to highlight that with a color as well, which Tableau lets me do. So I have to create a new calculated field called signals. So in this case, we'll call this signals. And I also have to create a different calculated field to control the color for the bottom chart. And what that is in this case, the individual's outliers is basically if the value is greater than the control limit, or the window average plus 3 times the moving range divided by 1.128. Okay? Or if it's lower than the lower control limit. And that's what this formula captures right here. And again, I'll refer you to Wheeler to have the statistical theory behind that. For now, let's just go ahead and make it. And what I want to do is put this in a specific one. I want to put it in the chosen stat field in the shape one. So what that'll allow me to do is put that right into the color tray, and it should change the color for the ones that are outliers. Great, just like that. Okay, so I want to do another one now, though, for the bottom chart. Let's call this one's MR signals for the moving range chart. And this is basically just saying if the value is greater than the calculation for the upper control limit of the moving range chart. Let's put that in there. Calculation is valid, okay. And then this would now become the color for this moving range. And it should be pretty much the same thing. And you can go in later and format it, change all the colors, make the lines look how you want them to look, and then create a dashboard for it. But it'll end up looking just like that. Okay, great. So I hope that was helpful, and look forward for more of these how-to guides as I continue to learn more and more about Tableau. And thanks for all of you out there who are helping teach me by the different things you're putting out there. All right, everyone, take care. Talk to you soon.